Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us tonight for Hopewell Valley Central High School's Financial Aid Night for the class of 2023. We are now in the thick of the college application process, and the thought in the back of your head, or maybe the front of your head, is probably, how am I paying for this? So tonight, we're very fortunate to be joined by Mr. Wil Casaine he's the Director of Financial Aid at TCNJ. He lives and breathes this work, and we're super fortunate to have him come and speak to our crew tonight. A couple of reminders before we get started. We are in a webinar format, so you won't be able to speak and ask your questions in this format. So please utilize the Q&A function on the bottom of your screen to enter any questions that you might have. We'll do our best to field any questions as we move along and as they're relevant. But then there will also be time for question and answer at the end as needed. This session is being recorded, so for whatever reason you have to leave or you weren't able, for anybody who wasn't able to make it tonight, we will be distributing a recording and slides afterwards. I think that about covers it. Thank you for joining us once again. With no further ado, I'll turn it over to Mr. Casaine.
Thank you, Mr. DeStefano. Thanks for the introduction. So as Mr. DeStefano said, the presentation that you're going to see here, it will be distributed. And I'm very happy that he said that, because I can guarantee you that, in this next hour and 15 minutes that we cover this, I am going to be throwing a lot of new concepts your way. So it is a lot of information, and I could guarantee you that you are going to be overwhelmed. Okay, it's just a lot. So you'll have the presentation with you, hopefully, as you're doing your FAFSA and later on, during the spring when you're getting your financial aid packages. If you have any questions, you can always refer back to this presentation in case you have any questions or kind of refresh your memory on some of the concepts that we covered, okay? So with that, we'll get started. And as Mr. DeStefano said, you can do the questions via the chat, but what I will do is I will also stop at the end of every section to see if there are any questions on the chat being asked. So what are we going to cover tonight? So we're going to cover the types and sources of aid. We're going to cover the application process. We're going to cover the financial aid package, and then just other useful information. But before we get started, we always like to point this out to everybody. So federal law requires that every college and university have what's called a net price calculator. And basically what that is, it's a mini financial aid application. It should take you no more than 2 to 5 minutes to complete. It's located on each college's website. And what it does is you go in there, you fill out this little mini application, you put in your personal information, and it tells you what every first-time or freshman student at that school has received in financial aid, somebody who meets your same profile. Okay, so somebody who meets your profile as a first-time, full-time, time student, what they're receiving in aid. So what I always recommend to families is as your sons and daughters are narrowing down their college search, and they say they have their top 3 or their top 5, go out to the school's websites. Traditionally, this net price calculator is located on the financial aid pages, web pages, and go in there and take the time to fill out the net price calculator and kind of see, what kind of aid that school gives out. It'll give you an idea of whether that school is generous with their financial aid, or they're cheap or they're stingy with their financial aid, so that you can kind of prepare yourself or prepare the conversation as to when you receive the aid packages. Okay, what challenges or struggles could we meet in terms of being able to afford the price at that institution? So when you apply for financial aid, and I'm going to go over the applications in the next section, basically that one financial aid form that you complete, the FAFSA form, gets sent to all of the sources of aid that you see on the left. So that one application is going to be sent to the federal government for processing. It's sent to a federal processor. It gets sent to the state of New Jersey for processing, and it gets sent to every college or university that you indicate on that FAFSA. Each one of those sources on the left, or those entities, is evaluating you for the types of financial aid that you see on the right-hand side. So you will be evaluated for grants, for scholarships, for student loans, and for employment opportunities through the federal work-study program. So again, that FAFSA sent to federal, state, colleges and universities, and each one of those entities is evaluating you for grants, scholarships, student loans, and employment opportunity. That one application does it all. Now, I want to point out this slide because just to kind of give you an idea of the types of aid that you will be applying for and to kind of maybe give you a hint of the income limits or what's to come. So you're going to be applying for two types of aid. One is need-based aid, and that is based on, the income and assets that you indicate on the form. And as you apply for admissions, you're going to be applying for merit-based aid, which is based on your academics or your talent, athletic ability, music ability, if you're going to be a music major, things like that. So the federal government and the state government, traditionally, your household income would need to be under $100,000 to have any odds of receiving that type of aid, okay? So you're in the six figures and you're already hitting ineligibility for federal and state grants. But for institutional funding, that's very different. That varies by institution. So what I've done here is I've kind of given you a screenshot here of what Princeton University puts out. And I like it because they're very transparent. A lot of schools do not share this, but you'll see if you look at Princeton University, you see that they give you gross income ranges for the household. They tell you the percent of folks that qualify for aid and what the average grant is at their institution, okay? Not a lot of schools share this, but I can tell you that a lot of schools have this formula, but they just keep it secret. So again, not to dissuade you from applying, because again, we know that for the federal and the state programs, really their income cutoffs are low. But if you were to look at the Princeton chart, you see that in some cases up to $250,000 or more are receiving some type of aid. So what I'm trying to get across to you here is that it's worth it to fill out that FAFSA and apply, even if you think your income is very high, because you might be surprised by what a specific institution considers a needy family in determining how much financial aid they're going to give out. So I'm just going to go over some types of aid. Federal grants. Now, these are need-based grants. Again, these are the ones that are based on your household income and your assets and traditionally under $100,000. Federal government, their signature program is called the Pell Grant. The maximum award is $6,895 a year. I think minimum right now is about $500 per year. SEOG stands for Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant. The maximum award is $4,000, and what that is those are federal funds that the federal government gives to the institution, and then the institution, based on the FAFSA results, determine if the student qualifies and for how much. Federal government also likes to tout what's called their TEACH grant, which right now is $3,772. That is for teaching majors only. As you may or may not be aware of, there is a teacher shortage going on right now, and it's escalated to get worse. So they're trying to entice individuals that maybe are going to go into education with additional grant funding. Perhaps somebody who's not sure what they want to do to entice them to go into education, or somebody who is in teaching to stay in education with that additional grant funding. So just keep in mind that that's available. Very limited programs, but again, these are the ones that are kind of like more gauged at the 100,000 income and below. State of New Jersey has multiple grant and scholarship programs. And with the state of New Jersey, unlike the federal, which they're all need-based, state of New Jersey gets into not only need-based awards, but also merit-based awards, okay? And what I've done with this, I'm gonna go over the chart in a second. For each one of the programs that you see here on the award type there on the left, I have included a specific slide for each one, which tells you whether it is a need-based grant or whether it is a need and merit-based grant or just a merit-based grant. Plus, I've given you the eligibility criteria for each one of them, okay? So I'm going to go over this main one first, and then in the interest of time, I'm not going to go over the specific eligibility criteria for each one. That's kind of going to be like your homework that I'm assigning you, that as you look at each one of these programs, you can go in and look at this specific slide as to what are the criteria for each. But just keep in mind that that FAFSA is going to be sent to the to the state government, and you are going to be evaluated for eligibility for these programs. So state of New Jersey, their signature program is called a full-time TAG program, tuition aid grant program, okay? And you see the award amounts there vary from as low as $1,280 a year to as high as $13,590 a year, okay? So a couple of caveats about the New Jersey grant programs. First, they're reserved for New Jersey residents, okay? Second, they're reserved for New Jersey residents attending a New Jersey school. If you are thinking of attending an out-of-state school, even if you are eligible for these programs, you cannot take that funding with you. What New Jersey is trying to do is they're trying to say, well, as a New Jersey resident, you may have eligibility for these programs, but the only way we're going to give it to you is to entice you to stay within the state of New Jersey and study in the state of New Jersey, okay? So again, New Jersey program available for New Jersey residents attending a New Jersey school. Even if you are eligible, this is not portable. You cannot take it with you, okay? Also, the state of New Jersey awards based on the type of institution you will attend. What do I mean by that? So let's again look at that line that says full-time TAG. Award amounts $1,280 to $13,590. The $1,280 award there, that's an award that's geared towards community colleges. So if the student attends a community college, that would be a community college award because the state realizes that community colleges are relatively inexpensive. The $13,590, that would be an independent college award. Let's say a Rider down the road, a Drew, a Centenary, a Monmouth University, because those are private institutions that cost a lot more money. TCNJ, I'm actually, maybe a little bit more than halfway. I'm like in around the $9,000 a year range as a state institution. So again, that uniqueness of the state grant programs are reserved for New Jersey residents attending a New Jersey school, and the awards are tailored for, the type of institution that you attend. But like I mentioned before, I've included a slide for each one of these programs that tells you whether they're need-based, what the eligibility criteria is, and you'll see as you're looking down that some of them are merit-based only, like STARS, the one that you graduate top 15%, you can study at your community college tuition free for the first 2 years. Then there's STARS 2, which is need and merit-based. You see that $250,000 income threshold, but then you also have to have, so that's the need part, but you also have to have that GPA, have graduated from your community college with a certain GPA, things like that. So each one of the slides here describes the eligibility criteria for each of the programs that I indicated at the very front there in terms of state programs, okay? Then we get to student loans, all right? So again, by filing the FAFSA, the college will evaluate you for loan eligibility. Now, the loans that you see here are student loans only. Parents are not involved yet, okay? So these are loans that only the student will apply for and be eligible for. These are loans that have no credit check. Okay, so the student will fill out the FAFSA. They will automatically qualify for this loan. There's no credit check on this loan if the student would like to apply for it. Also, for these student loans, there's no income limit. All right, you can make $1 million a year and the student will automatically qualify for a student loan under their name. Okay, now there's two types of student loans that the student will apply for and can be eligible for and can make a decision whether they want to borrow on these loans or not. So if you see there on the left-hand side, you see grade level, and it covers freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors, and beyond. And then you'll look at that middle column, it says dependent undergraduate student. The FAFSA is going to ask certain questions. They're going to determine whether the student is a dependent student or an independent student. But you see, let's say the dependent undergraduate, you see freshman, you see the maximum loan amount there is $5,500 for that year, okay? So again, although the student will automatically qualify, there's no credit check, they can get this loan, the amounts aren't very big, okay? These loans are more meant to be kind of like a supplement to help out with their college education, help perhaps assist mom and dad with their college education or supplement other aid that the student may qualify for. So you'll see again that the amounts are not very big. They increase by year, 5,500 freshmen, 6,500 sophomore, then 7,500 junior, seniors, and beyond, and that's per year. And then you see that second line there, it says max $3,500 subsidized, okay? So here's what happens with these loans. So again, the student will qualify automatically. So the principal on this loan is deferred while the student is in school. In other words, the student does not begin repayment on that principal until 6 months after they graduate, okay? But the FAFSA and the school are going to determine whether the student qualifies for what's called a subsidized loan or an unsubsidized loan. And really the only difference is the subsidized loan, the interest is being paid by the federal government while the student is in school, and unsubsidized, the interest on the loan becomes due immediately as soon as the funds are sent to the school for the, say, the fall semester, right? The student can capitalize that interest, but again, principal is deferred, but that FAFSA, that income is going to determine whether the student qualifies for the subsidized, for the unsubsidized, both, or just one. Okay, the school is going to determine that. But again, this is something the school is going to package the student with, the student desires, and the student will have more time to ask questions as to kind of like, what am I getting myself into here? They'll have to complete entrance counseling and a master promissory note. So again, these are loans in the student's name only. Then there are loans that student and the parent can borrow, or both, okay? But now we start getting into like a little bit stricter criteria. So these are now credit-based loans, okay? So the first program I'm going to talk about is the State of New Jersey program, okay? So the State of New Jersey program is called the New Jersey State NJ Class. It's a college loan supplemental program, okay? This is a loan that the parent and or the student can borrow, all right? Traditionally, though, what happens with this program is the student applies, and because they don't have credit, they will get denied. And then traditionally, I have parents who either co-sign on behalf of the student, or they may just say, you know what, no, we're going to have our son and daughter take out the federal loan program, which they get automatically, and anything else we'll borrow to assist our son and daughter to help pay for college, okay? Unlike the grant programs, the State of New Jersey loan program, you just have to be the New Jersey resident. This, since it's a loan, you can use it either to study in New Jersey, or this one is portable. You can take that loan money and study out of state. So the grant, they wanted to stay in New Jersey. The loan program can go out of New Jersey. Also, what I like about the New Jersey loan program is that they give you a lot of repayment options, okay? And even the time to repay changes. So on the New Jersey loan program, you can begin to pay it immediately if that's what you desire. If you, as soon as they send the college the money to help pay for their sons and daughters' college education, help pay that bill, you can say, I want them to start billing me immediately every month. You can also pay just interest, you know, while your son and daughter is in school. Say, I'm going to just pay the interest only, you know, I can manage that, and then we'll begin the full payments after my son and daughter graduates. Or you can pick a full deferment option, which means that as while your son and daughter is in college, you don't have to make any payments towards this loan, all right? They also offer a 10-year fixed rate program, a 15-year fixed rate program, a 20-year fixed rate program. So they give you not only payment options, but also how long to pay the loan program, okay? So again, that's the State of New Jersey program, very flexible there. Federal government also offers a loan program. That one, though, only the parent can borrow. That one's called the Federal Plus. It stands for Parent Loan for Undergraduate Student. Again, this one's in the parent's name only. This is also a credit-based loan. On this one, though, unlike the New Jersey program, repayment begins immediately. So as soon as the federal government sends that funding to the college to help pay the bill, they will begin monthly payments on that loan, okay? You know, the nice option is that they do give you up to 25 years to repay, but you'll notice that if you're looking really quickly at the state interest loan, the state loan program, the interest rates versus the federal one is a little higher, okay? Now, what happens is traditionally all these loan programs, they compete with each other every year. So what you might find is one year the state program has better interest rate than the federal, and then vice versa, okay? The other one that we'd like to point out is private educational loans. You know, private entities, private banks, they also lend money to families in order to be able to help pay for college. And again, the reason we point them out is because you may be able, as you're shopping around, to seeing what is the best program for you, whether it's, because your credit history, might, be a little damaged, or the repayment rate, or the interest rates or whatever. We always say shop around, see what the state government is offering, see what the federal program is offering, but also see what private educational entities are offering, because, places like Sallie Mae or PNC or Wells Fargo Bank or TD Bank or whatever, they have these programs. And, based on your relationship with them, you may go in there and say, look, I have my mortgage through you guys. I have my line of credit to you guys. Do you give student loans? And they may say, as a matter of fact, we do. And you may find that they have even a better interest rate than the federal or state program. And you may say, well, you know what? I'm actually going to borrow through a private bank as opposed to going through a program with the state of New Jersey or with the federal government. Again, we're putting this out there so that you shop around. If loans are going to be an option, or loans are going to be something that you need to borrow on to help pay for college, we want you to kind of be that educated consumer and be able to say, well, let me shop around and see what is the best loan program for myself, for my child, for my family. Okay. And, the interest rates that you have here are current interest rates. They are subject to change for 23-24. Traditionally, those are announced on July 1st. We don't know if they will go up. We don't know if they will go down. And also on these types of loans, you can borrow up to the full year's cost of attendance at college. So if it costs $30,000 a year to pay for college for your son's or your daughter's first year, and you decide, you know what, we don't have anything, we're going to borrow $30,000, you can do that. Okay, that's a very personal decision. I don't know if I would recommend that, but you can do that if that's what you decide to do, or that's what you need to do in order to help pay for college. And finally, types of aid. This is where we kind of get into the institutional merit and talent-based aid. Okay. And this is really where the financial aid office is not involved, but I'll tell you how we come into play in a little bit. So really, this is where, for example, that Princeton sheet that, that Princeton screenshot that you saw, where they may say, well, depending on your need, you get X, but then also the admissions offices, as they're looking at your sons and daughters' applications, as they're determining whether the student is admissible, when they're determining whether we're going to admit that student to our school, they're also kind of looking and saying, well, you know what, this is a student that we want to attract. We like his, the major that he or she has chosen. Their academics are very strong, or, they took a lot of AP classes and we really like that. He's bringing a lot of credits already to the college. Or you may have a son or daughter that, hey, you have an athletic ability and they're being courted by D1 or D2 schools for scholarships. So as that admissions cycle is going on, the admissions offices are looking at that strength of that candidate, and they're saying, you know what, we're going to accept the student, we're going to send them the admissions offer, but we're also going to entice that student to hopefully attend our school by offering him or her an institutional merit or talent-based scholarship. Okay, I'll give you an example. We had a few years ago, we have a music program here, and they were in need of oboe players for some reason. So I remember the students who were applying, and they happened to be, applying as oboe players. They were really trying to go after them, and they were offering them very generous scholarships, inviting them to come in to do their, their audition, for the program. And then if they really wanted them, they were offering them really generous scholarships. So you really never know what's going on a yearly basis with these schools, what factors they're really looking at really strongly, or that they need to fill a major or whatever, and how they're going to tailor their institutional merit or talent-based aid. And again, this really varies greatly by institution, and it varies greatly by year too, depending on the college's need. So what happens is, traditionally, when students are picked for any institutional funding, the financial aid officers will be notified of that, as well as the student, and then we will include that as part of the student's financial aid package. But again, kind of getting back to that Princeton chart that you saw that I'm using, what will happen is then the financial aid officers will determine if the student, on top of any merit-based aid, qualifies for any institutional need-based aid based on some kind of income criteria or FAFSA criteria or EFC criteria. And then again, if the student does qualify, then that would supplement any institutional merit or talent-based aid that the student qualifies for, on top of potentially any other aid, whether it's those student loans or that federal or state funding that they may qualify for to prepare their entire aid package. Okay, and we'll talk about the aid packages in the third section. So that's kind of like how, the different programs, what's available out there, things like that. So now I'll stop and see, Mr. Stefano, any questions that have come through the chat?
Yeah, we have a few, so we'll just go down the list. The first was, can you add colleges after submitting the FAFSA?
As a matter of fact, I cover that in the next section, but yes.
Perfect. We won't spoil the surprise then. On the Common App, when there's a question, if we need need-based aid or EOF, should we say yes, regardless of income?
Yeah, because you're going to be evaluated anyway. And for example, the EOF has very, very strict income criteria. So when the school receives that, they're going to pretty much be like, you know what, you're just way out of eligibility, and they'll notify you.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Are the grant amounts annual amounts or total amounts for the student?
The grant amounts are annual amounts, because every year you have to complete the FAFSA to be reevaluated. And every year your income could change because it's based on your prior year income. So yes, they're annual amounts.
Yeah. What is the difference between dependent and independent on the previous slide? I think that was 2 or 3 slides ago.
Yes. So good observation. So what happens is the FAFSA asks a series of 15 questions. And based on how the student answers those questions, the FAFSA will determine whether the student provides just their information, their income and assets and all their personal information on the FAFSA, or whether they have to provide their information and their parents' information on the FAFSA to be evaluated for eligibility.
Perfect. For the student and parent loans, do you need to fill out the application every year?
Yes, you do. So a lot of the lenders, for example, the state of New Jersey and the federal government, require that the FAFSA is on file. Even if you're like realize, you know what, I'm not going to qualify for any grants, I just know it, my income's way too high. They still require that FAFSA, because traditionally they want the student to be able to take advantage of the lower interest federal loans first before the family does any of the private loans. The student can say, or the family can say, look, we filed a FAFSA, we know he's eligible, and we don't want him borrowing. We want to borrow on the student's behalf. But state and federal require the FAFSA, and even some of the private banks, they also want the school to have a FAFSA on file to give, again, the family the option to say, do you want to take that lower interest rate student loan in the student's name only? Or if you don't, that's fine, but we want to at least be able to see that you have that option available.
Great. And then for the New Jersey student parent loan, do you need to reside in New Jersey throughout all 4 years of college?
You do not. You do not. Even, believe it or not, even for the grant. Let's say you are eligible for the grant, and then halfway through the junior year, the parents move, you can be grandfathered into the program because you were a New Jersey resident.
It's interesting. In FAFSA, do we need financial information of non-custodial parent?
Not on FAFSA. We're going to go over that in the application section.
Perfect. Do these grants also apply for when my child decides to pursue postgraduate studies?
No, graduate education. This is only for undergraduate. Graduate education is loans only.
Great. Does the expected family contribution change from year to year, or is it constant for 4 years?
If your income changes from year to year, the expected family contribution will change as well.
In the CSS profile, why do they ask parent financial information under student account since parents are creating their own account?
I'm going to leave that question to CSS. They're very quirky, and you know what? We're going to get into the applications next, so we'll go more. Okay. We'll go more into the CSS profile.
Perfect. Does reporting high income on the FAFSA application impact chances of getting admitted?
It does not. Admissions is need blind.
And how do divorced parents fill out the FAFSA and net price calculator?
Custodial parent, and we're going to go over that in a second.
Perfect. All right. That's all the questions for now.
Perfect. All right. Audience is awake. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go over the applications now. So I'm going to basically go over 3 applications, but 2 of them, some people don't have to fill out or will never have to fill out, but we want to present them as options. Everyone will have to fill out what's called the FAFSA, and that's the 3rd application I'm going to cover. Okay. So the first application I'm going to cover is the one for New Jersey Dreamers or for undocumented students. So the federal government says, and even some institutions say, that in order to apply and be eligible to receive federal funding or institutional funding, the student must be a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen. They must be here under a permanent status, okay? But the state of New Jersey has a separate eligibility criteria for New Jersey state aid only. So for students who are in New Jersey undocumented or here under a non-permanent immigration status, they can apply for New Jersey state aid only 3 programs they can apply. And for them, they would have to go to the New Jersey state website directly, which is the HESA.org website you see on the first bullet there. They must be certain criteria as well, like, have attended high school here for 3 years, file an affidavit that they're going to apply for citizenship. But they can fill out their own New Jersey Dreamer application through the state of New Jersey. And if they are eligible, the state of New Jersey will notify the school of that eligibility. Again, this is for undocumented students only, and this is only for New Jersey state aid because other aid programs are not available to undocumented students, okay? And again, you have the website and kind of what it looks like and all that stuff. So this is only undocumented students. Then there's the CSS profile, okay? So CSS profile, approximately 400 colleges and scholarship organizations use the profile, all right? Also available now, October 1st, just as the FAFSA. FAFSA is available now, all right? But the profile, I'll call it a FAFSA on steroids, okay? Because the profile asks for a lot more information, all right? If your sons and daughters are gonna study in New Jersey, in other words, they're not thinking of going out of state, then there's only one institution in New Jersey that requires the profile, and that's the Stevens Institute of Technology. They are the only New Jersey college that requires the profile. No other college in New Jersey requires the profile. So again, if they're going to study in state, you don't have to worry about this. If the student is thinking of going out of state, they should go out either to the CSS profile website, which I'm going to give you on the next slide, or the individual college's website to see if that school requires the profile on top of the FAFSA, okay? So the profile asks for a lot more information than the FAFSA does, okay? So for example, the profile asks for the primary home value. So the home that your parents live in, they may ask questions like, when did they buy it? How much they owe on the mortgage, and then the profile school may make a determination and say, well, this home, your parents have $400,000 in equity on this home. And the expectation at this college is that before we give you any institutional funding, your parents borrow on the equity of the home to assist in paying for your college education. The FAFSA does not ask any of that information. They don't care about your primary home or its value. The profile may ask for retirement plan values. In other words, how much do you have in retirement? How much you've accumulated? How much are you contributing on a yearly basis? Because they may say, well, before we give you any institutional funding, we expect you to ratchet back the amount you contribute towards your retirement and use that funding instead to help pay for college, okay? Assets for business owners, regardless of number of employees. So the FAFSA doesn't want any information about your business unless it employs 100 employees or more, while the profile will ask for business worth, asset worth, things like that, okay? The profile also costs money. So the profile uses 21 income information like the FAFSA, but it costs money. So if you make under 100,000, it's free to file the profile. Everybody over 100,000, you have to spend $25 for the application, and that gives you one college, the application in one college, and then $16 for each additional college, okay? Also, the profile, depending on the institution, may ask for what's called non-custodial parent information. So the FAFSA only asks for custodial parent information. So if your parents are divorced, the FAFSA is going to only ask for, on the divorce decree, whoever your custodial parent is, traditionally the one you reside with the most, that's the information that goes on the FAFSA. They don't want any information about your non-custodial parent. But the profile, depending on the school, may ask you for non-custodial profile information. They want to see your custodial parents' income and asset information and your non-custodial before they make a decision about whether you qualify for any institutional aid at that school. All right. So again, traditionally, mostly for the out-of-state students, There's only 400 colleges, so it's really not a lot of them, okay? But again, very robust in the type of questions that they ask. But I've given you the website where you can apply. You can look to see if your institution requires the profile, the non-custodial profile website. If your school requires that you do that, their customer support, their live chat, things like that. So again, hopefully most of you won't have to do it, but those of you that do, you guys just be ready to provide a lot more information in terms of the custodial, the profile and perhaps non-custodial parent information.
I've got a couple questions here about just on that. So you mind if I throw them at you?
Absolutely.
While it's relevant. For the CSS, can you estimate some amounts for the answers, such as home estimates or your 401k investments, et cetera? Do they require actual numbers at the time of filing the form?
So what's going to happen is going to depend on the institution, really. So some institutions may just say, tell us when you bought your home and how much you owe on it. And then they're going to do the calculation to determine equity. They're going to be like, well, they bought this home in 1997. They paid $200,000. They only owe 100. That school is going to look up, you live in Hopewell, New Jersey, this is what the home value is. I don't know if they're using Zillow or whatever, they're going to come up with a home value and they're going to say, this is the equity on that home. Others may say, please estimate the value, So that's really going to be institution specific because the institution pays the College Board to say, well, here's how we want you to tailor the questions so that when we receive them, we can evaluate it as we want it to be evaluated.
Perfect, thank you. On the FAFSA and CSS, the question on both parents' income, do you add SS 401k contributions into line 1 W-2 form?
So what's going to happen is the FAFSA is going to be very specific on the instructions that they ask in terms of income. What I always recommend is, and I cover this in two more slides, is use the IRS data retrieval tool when it comes to the FAFSA. Okay, it allows you to grab that income information straight from the IRS, populate the FAFSA, and then you don't have to worry about any of these, I got to look on my W-2, only certain lines like, code D and code C and all that go on there. You know what I mean? So it does it for you, so that's what I would recommend. But the FAFSA is going to give you very specific instructions. It's going to say, okay, in this section, we want to know if you had any pension contributions. Well, you would find that on line 12, code D, and that amount you would put on here. You see? So it's going to be very specific. But again, the FAFSA is not going to ask you how much you have in your 401k. The profile may, but the FAFSA is not going to ask you that. You see? So there's going to be certain things that the FAFSA immediately omits. And as you're filling it out, it's going to give you instructions on that, while the profile is going to be very different on that.
Perfect. Another question. I understand that a 529 account with a decent balance can adversely impact the ability to get loans, but does it also impact a student's ability to get grants and merit-based funds?
Well, to get need-based grants, not merit-based funds, because remember, merit-based funds are based on talent. All right. Those need-based grants, yes, 529 is considered an asset, whether it's in the student's name or in the parent's name. So a portion of that asset, the expectation is to be used towards college education.
Okay, just a couple more at this time. What if the non-custodial parent won't cooperate to provide their income and asset information?
That's something you would have to talk to the individual college about and see how they want to handle that.
Mm-hmm. And the CSS for non-custodial parents, do you have to report any step-parent information?
Yes, just like you do on the FAFSA as well. If you live with your mother based on a divorce and your mother has remarried, then yes, the income of that step parent has to be reported.
And then somebody has to follow up to that question about the 529. What does the quote unquote decent amount?
Well, look, the bottom line is no matter what you have on your 529, if the 529 is in the parent's name for that child, it'll be reported as a parent asset. And 5.6% of that amount will go towards the family contribution to help pay for college. So let's say you have $100,000 in there. Guess what? $5,600 is going to be expected to go towards paying for college. Okay, it's going to go into the family contribution. If the 529 is solely in the student's name, they'll report it as a student asset, and then 20% of that will be required to be used towards the family contribution towards college. Okay.
Okay, and then a question about the definition of previous year, the IRS declaration of 2021 related to 2020 income submitted this year.
So the FAFSA On the third bullet on this slide that you have here,
Mhm.
the FAFSA uses what's called prior year income information. So for the 23-24 academic year, which is the year that starts August of 2023, which is the year that all the seniors listening to this presentation will be freshmen, the income amount that goes on that FAFSA is 2021 income information. That is the income that's going to be used to determine aid eligibility.
Okay, great. Do you really have to report on the retirement accounts on CSS when you really can't withdraw due to penalty?
Well, yes, but I think what they're mostly looking for is how much you're contributing. If you're contributing, let's say the max, I don't even know what the max is anymore, but let's just say, for shits and giggles that the max is, $30,000 a year that you can contribute, out of your income, pre-tax, let's say. They're going to basically say, you know what, you're contributing 30. No, you're not going to contribute the max, or if you can continue to contribute the max, then the expectation is if you contribute less, use some of that money to help pay for college, then we may assist you with some funding. But that's a very institution-specific formula. You see, the CSS profile is institution tailored, okay? Each institution tailors it how they want. So it's really an institution-only question.
Perfect. And then last one for now, I think a follow-up on the step-parent question. On the FAFSA, do you have to report a step-parent income if you filed married filing separately?
Yes, you do. If the parent is currently remarried, then yes, that income goes in there regardless of filing status and regarding of who's claimed on the tax returns. You still have to do it.
All right. Sorry to break your flow.
No, don't worry.
No.
That I consider that part of the flow.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
All right. So this is the FAFSA. So this is the one that everybody has to complete. So again, whether you are undocumented and you're only doing that Dreamer application, or whether your school requires that additional CSS profile for determine eligibility, everybody's going to have to complete the FAFSA, the one that you see here. So again, the 23-24 FAFSA is available now. It was available October 1 of 2022. It collects the family's personal and financial information, and it's used to calculate what's called the expected family contribution. We're going to go over that in more detail in the next section. You do the FAFSA electronically. You do it on the web. There's the website that you apply. The FAFSA uses what's called prior year income information. So in essence, the FAFSA, you're doing it every year, but the income is kind of like lagging. It's kind of almost 2 years behind, okay? So keep that in mind. But again, you do it every year because every year your income could change. It could go up, it could go down. And we highly recommend, if you can, to use the IRS data retrieval tool to populate that income tax information with 2021 income information. It's it's the most accurate, coming directly from the IRS. If you are for some reason selected for an audit by the federal or the state or the institution, we don't have to collect any income information because we know that income information came from the IRS and it is valid. So it bypasses any income information. As part of completing the FAFSA, the student, because the student is the individual applying for financial aid, and at least one parent in the household, because their information is probably going to go on that FAFSA, must apply for what's called a federal student aid ID. It used to be called a PIN. It is basically your electronic signature. When you complete the FAFSA, the student is required to electronically sign the FAFSA, FSA ID, and at least one parent has to electronically sign the FAFSA via the FSA ID, okay? It also enhances security. It's a two-step verification process, okay? What I usually recommend here, because some people do get tied up with the FSA ID, it can be a complicated process if you follow the actual FAFSA instructions on the site. I always say, go out to my friend YouTube, all right? I've given you the link here on a video on how to create an FSA ID. It is a 6.5-minute video. I think it's the best. All my tutorials here on campus are out on YouTube, in terms of cost of attendance, how to apply for aid, things like that. And also, even if you type in how to create an FSA ID, it's going to send you here. But also what I like is, it's got the related videos on the right of the screen, like how to fill out the FAFSA and troubleshooting your account and things like that. So it's going to have a lot of helpful information. So I would probably recommend, before you do the FAFSA, if you haven't done it already, go out to YouTube, look how to create an FSA ID, perhaps a video on how to fill out the FAFSA, then go in there create the FSA ID and do the FAFSA, okay? Again, everybody's gonna have to do it. It can be confusing, so you might as well try and get as many tools as you can to help you out. The FAFSA itself. So the FAFSA, there are currently 103 questions on the FAFSA, okay? And according to the USDE, when we asked, it takes about 63 minutes on average to complete a FAFSA for the first time, all right? Now, I'm not telling you this to, well, I'm not telling you this to overwhelm you, although I know I'm overwhelming you. I'm not telling you this to scare you or whatever. I'm just telling you this because you need to take your time when you're completing this form. This is very important, folks, filling out this application, because it could determine if you qualify for aid and how much, okay? So just take your time. On the day that you're ready to do this, just be ready to spend an hour or 2 hours filling out the form, sitting in front of the computer, try and get your personal information out. There's actually videos out there on the stuff that you should get out to prepare, like social security cards, driver's license, you know, tax information, you know, it prepares you. So just prepare yourself, take your time, be ready to spend that hour completing the form. Hopefully it takes you less. The second time around, it takes much less, okay? And just as a preview, this whole process is going to change for 24-25. The FAFSA is going to be simplified. EFC is going to be called something different. Calculation is going to change. But for now, this is the world we have to live in. So again, please take your time in completing the form. I can't emphasize that enough. The nice thing is that once the student completes the form, it takes about 2 or 3 days, and then they're going to receive what's called a student aid report. And that student aid report is basically all the FAFSA information. So it'll give them an opportunity to check the data to make sure it's correct. And if there's any issues, they can go back out to the FAFSA and fix it. Okay. So just some general eligibility requirements, and I kind of touched on this already. Student must have a valid social security number. Student must be a US citizen or eligible non-citizen. In other words, they're here on a permanent status. But most importantly, they must be enrolled or accepted for enrollment in an eligible program of study and pursuing a degree, certificate, or recognized credentials. So in other words, you know, in order for the student to receive financial aid, the colleges want to see that they've applied for admissions, that they've been admitted, and that they're pursuing some kind of program. Even if they're undeclared their first year or two, but eventually they will get some kind of degree, certificate, or credential. Okay, vocational school, it could be a 2-year school, 4-year, they're going to be doctors, whatever. They're there for a reason. They're not there as a visiting student taking a few classes, they're taking golf classes, you know, they're discovering themselves. They want to be there for a purpose. Okay, so just basic tenets of financial aid. Key components of the FAFSA. So again, it's 103 questions, but please keep this in mind. Probably out of the 103 questions, about 80% of those questions are all demographic questions, you know, personal information, you know, from full names to social security to dates of birth. If you have a license, the license, the year in college you're going to be, the colleges that you plan on attending, whether you want to work while you're in college, whether you're going to live on, you know, on campus, you know, like just a lot of general information about yourself that the schools are going to use, you know, in order to prepare that package. Okay. So, and then that other 20% are what I'll call the hard questions, you know, the income question, the asset questions, you know, perhaps more personal information, you know, about what your parents, you know, college level, if they went to college, things like that. Okay. So again, 80% of them are not hard. It's just that, you know, as I can't emphasize enough, just take your time when completing the questions. Okay. And then there's parts of the FAFSA, you know, again, household size, number in college, those parents, those are all parts of the formula. Those are all going to be part of the formula to determine that eligibility. But I want to stop here. And the main one that I want to talk about is, and somebody alluded to it in a question in the first section, is list all colleges of interest, and you can list up to 10. So here's kind of like how the FAFSA works. Okay. You do the FAFSA, and at the end of the FAFSA, you're going to put down the up to 10 colleges that you are interested in attending. And what you're doing is, by putting those 10 colleges, is you're authorizing the federal government and the state government to allow each one of those schools to have access to that FAFSA data. Okay. Now you may say, well, you know, we have 15 that we're interested in, or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50, whatever. You can put those all in there. Okay. But there's a process involved there. Okay. So for example, you're allowed to put 10 on your first submission. Okay. You submit the FAFSA, it takes 48 to 72 hours to process. Once it's processed, the student is going to be notified via the email address that they used on the FAFSA. Okay. At that time, they'll get that SAR, they'll be able to review the data. If the student wants to put additional colleges, they can log back into their saved FAFSA. They can delete those 10 colleges they put in there. They can add 10 new colleges and resubmit that FAFSA. In another 48 to 72 hours, the FAFSA will be processed, and now 10 new colleges will have access to the data. The original 10 are always going to be there in perpetuity. You may not see them, but it's those original 10 are there. It's just that 10 new ones are going to receive it. It also comes in handy. Let's say your sons and daughters are considering 4 schools now, and they put in 4, they want to meet deadlines, and they submit the FAFSA. And then all of a sudden, they go and visit a school in January, and they're like, wow, we really like it here. I'm going to apply. And they can go back into their FAFSA, and now they can put Eastern College, whatever, submit it on the FAFSA, and now that school will have access to the FAFSA data. Okay. So don't be worried. Even if it's a college that you're dreaming about, or a college that you're unsure of, or something that you're thinking about, put them on the FAFSA. Okay. Let them get the data. They're not going to do anything with that data, as you're going to see in the next section, until the student applies and is admitted, because there's a whole process involved in creating the financial aid package. Okay. The FAFSA submission page, believe it or not, everything's done electronically, but for some reason, this page still says print this page. So you know what I like to do? I like to tell everybody, print the page. The federal government is telling you to do it, print it, keep it for your records as your receipt. Okay. It also kind of gives you a hint of your expected family contribution. It might tell you if you're Pell Grant eligible, an estimate, if you're eligible for a loan, for the federal government, an estimate. So it just gives you some helpful information. But I would say definitely you want to keep this page for your records. Also, that information is going to be sent to the state of New Jersey. So the state of New Jersey, the way they like to do it is they like to communicate with the student directly. Okay. And we're going to touch on that in this section in the next slide. But what happens is if any more information is needed, different entities are going to reach out to the student, but the state of New Jersey kind of likes to do their own thing. So at some point, the state of New Jersey may ask the student to complete what's called an NJ FAMS profile. Okay. Basically, it's a profile on the state student portal, which will instruct them, hey, look, if we need more information from you, we're going to communicate via the portal. You submit it via the portal. If you're eligible for state aid, we're going to say you're eligible, but you got to log into the portal to view your award amounts. I mean, they're going to send it to the school anyway. But so at some point, the student, if they're going to stay in New Jersey and study at a New Jersey school, they should complete this NJ FAMS. But traditionally, what happens is after the students submit their FAFSA, they're pretty much done. And they'll see this option. You can do it immediately after you submit the FAFSA and just create that portal. But what will happen is the state of New Jersey will reach out to the student if they're via email and say, hey, look, we have information for you. We need more information. Please go link on our, click on the link on the email we provided and, create this additional portal. Because again, what happens is, so let's say, remember, this is going to a federal processor. It's going to each college and university that you indicated on there, and it's going to go to the state of New Jersey. If any of those entities needs information from you, they're going to reach out to you, okay? State of New Jersey reaches out to the students directly, okay, via email, again, via that email that they used on the FAFSA, okay? The federal government, if they need any information, they contact the school and they say, we need more information to complete this record. Please reach out to the student and collect it. And the school itself, if they need more information from the student to complete the record, will also reach out to the student. Okay. So federal government and the school, they act together. They'll only send one notification if they need more info. The state of New Jersey likes to reach out to students directly. Okay. And what I always say to folks is, if you're unsure about an email, call the school, call the state entity, just say, hey, look, I got an email. You're asking for more info. I just want to know if this is legit or not, or call the school. And I'm also going to give you at the very last slide information about the state where you can call their hotline. If you have any financial aid questions, you get stuck on something, or you get something that looks a little funky via email or asking you to divulge information, and they're our state entity that they can, help you disseminate that information. Okay. Additional documents. Okay, and then I'll stop here to see if there's any questions that came in about section 2.
Yep, we do have a few, so I'll just go down. Do we have to report 529 info for younger children on the profile?
If, let's say, the parent has a 529 in their name for each of their kids, then yes, you would have to report that as a total asset on the FAFSA, even though it's only your oldest child that's applying for school.
Great. Do you report balances in the retirement accounts or just yearly contributions?
You don't report any of that from the FAFSA. FAFSA doesn't want any information about your retirement. It's the profile that may ask for information about retirement.
If you're not looking for any financial aid but want merit scholarships for your child, do parents need to submit all the personal information on the FAFSA?
No, they do not. They don't even need to complete the FAFSA. Okay. If you're looking for merit scholarships, that's going to be done automatically by the school through the admissions application. So if you don't want to apply for any, if you don't think you're going to qualify for any grant aid, and loans are not even going to be a factor, you're not going to need loans, you do not need to complete a FAFSA.
And can you submit the FAFSA before submitting the Common App and college applications in terms of timing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're not tied to each other. As you'll see in the 4th section, I always say, look at all the deadline dates, because you may have a deadline date of, January 1 for the FAFSA, but then they're saying, oh, you can apply all the way up till March 15th. So you're like, you know what? I want to get my FAFSA in by the deadline date to be considered, even though I'm still not even sure if I'm going to apply to this school.
And when you resubmit a FAFSA a month later to add additional schools, does any info need to be updated in terms of assets?
I mean, no, you're only required to report the assets as of the day you filed the first FAFSA. Okay. If you have, $20,000 less or $20,000 more, no, you don't report any of that. All you're doing is changing the school.
And going back to the 529s, if grandpa has a 529 for my son, will that 529 asset balance be factored into any need-based grant criteria?
So here, that's actually a good question. So what happens is, technically, that 529, if it's held by grandpa for Johnny, doesn't get reported as an asset for the parent or an asset for the student. But there's a separate section on the FAFSA that says, is there any money that's going to come in on the student's behalf to help pay for college? Technically, it's supposed to go there.
Perfect, thank you. If divorced parents share joint custody and both are considered custodial parents, who would fill out the FAFSA form?
The parent that made the most money.
And what is the deadline for the FAFSA and the CSS profile?
It varies by school.
Mhm.
My priority deadline is February 15th, but another school may be March 15th, but another school may be January 1st. So that's where the student needs to go out to the school's websites and not only determine what the application deadlines are, but also what the FAFSA deadlines are for the specific schools.
Awesome, that's it for now.
All right, good. So section 3, the award. So real briefly, you saw section 1, you're filling out these forms, it's going to different entities, and you're going to be evaluated for all the types of aid. You saw all the different types of aid that are out there. You saw that there are different applications depending on your situation. Everybody has to do the FAFSA, but some schools require the profile, and some students who are not eligible to file the FAFSA because of their immigration status can file the New Jersey Dreamer application. And all of that is basically to get to this section, the awards, okay? So I just want to give you a really quick, brief background of kind of like what happens in the background, even though you're not going to be any part of this, but just so you understand why you could put 100 colleges on the FAFSA, and until the student is accepted at that school, the schools are not going to go through this whole process, because again, there's, a ginormous, complex process involved in the background, and only if the student is accepted do they want to go through this, okay? But the first thing the school does is once your son or daughter is accepted and they're ready to prepare financial aid packages, is they determine the cost of attendance, okay? Cost of attendance is basically how much is it going to cost for that student to attend that institution for their freshman year, okay? How much is it going to cost to go there? And here's just some of the common items that the school factors in creating that cost of attendance. Tuition and fees, room, board, books, supplies, equipment. If the student needs a special laptop, they might put that in there for their major, if there are any loan fees involved. Let's say it's their junior year and they're going to go study abroad in Germany or Italy or wherever, obviously that's going to have different costs. So what the school does is every year, as you apply and as the student is returning, they're developing what's called the cost of attendance. How much does it cost to go there for 1 year of school? So that's step one. Step two is the FAFSA results. The student has been accepted. They're ready to prepare that package. They pull in all that FAFSA data and they begin to evaluate the FAFSA data. And basically all they're looking for is what's called the EFC, the expected family contribution. It is a formula that the federal government uses in order to determine that number. And it's basically the number that the schools use to determine need and aid eligibility. And again, preview 24-25 EFC is going away. It's going to be replaced with what's called the Student Aid Index. Okay. And that's for any juniors or below in the room. It's going to be a very different presentation next year for you. So I wanted to give you kind of like a sample EFC for the Smith family. And this is all based on a federal formula. So the family lives in New Jersey. Parents are married. The household size is 4 with 1 child going to college. So mom, dad, 2 children. First one's going to college. Their 2021 adjusted gross income is $99,000. Their assets are $15,000 and the student had no income and assets in 20. For this family, they can contribute, or their expected family contribution is $15,000 for the student's first year of college. All right. So then we take that information and we establish what's called financial need. All right. So you see on the very top, you have the different types of colleges, universities. On the left, up and down, you see COA, which stands for cost of attendance. How much does it cost for that first year of study at that particular college or university? You see the EFC, which is that FAFSA formula created amount. How much can the family contribute? And that's a constant, because no matter where you go in the US, what college, that's going to remain always the same. And then we establish financial need. So if you were to look at the community college column, let's say your sons and daughters decide we're going to attend Mercer. Well, community college is relatively inexpensive, tuition, fees, books, maybe some transportation allowance for traveling to and from campus. So community colleges determine it costs $8,000 to attend Mercer County College. The Smith family, it's been determined that they can contribute up to $15,000 a year. So this family at Mercer County College has no financial need. All right. So therefore, Mercer County College has no responsibility to find financial aid for this family. All right. This family could say, we don't have the $15,000. What can we do? And the community college would say, okay, you can borrow on a loan. The student is eligible for a loan to assist with paying. But basically, they have no financial needs, so they have no responsibility to give that student a financial aid package, in other words. Okay. I worked at Middlesex County College for 12 years. And when we encountered these families, traditionally, we would send the family a letter basically saying, we received your FAFSA results. Based on the results and our costs, you have no need. Therefore, no financial aid, awards or package will be sent to you. If you still require assistance or help, you feel free to make an appointment and visit or talk to one of our counselors on site. Okay. State College University, they see that second column. That's where I'm at. $30,000 a year. That's pretty close to what it costs to come to TCNJ. My tuition, fees, room and board add up to that. My books are about a couple $100 more on top of that. So it's relatively close to what it costs to come 1 year at TCNJ. So that family at TCNJ, their EFC is $15,000. So their financial need is $15,000. So then our goal is to try and find or try and piece enough financial aid together. Again, whether it's need-based aid, whether it's merit-based aid, whether it's student loans, to assist them with their financial need of $15,000. Okay. Now our goal is always to try and find that 15. We may not get lucky and find it, or we may run out of sources, but at least that's our goal. Or in some cases, we may say, well, we can only find 10, the other 5, your parent would need to borrow on a loan to help fulfill that difference. Okay. Traditionally, what we get is, let's say we find the 15 and then the family comes to us and says, well, we're having an issue with the 15,000 EFC that the federal government is saying we can contribute. We just can't contribute. It's 15% of our income. It's too high. And then at that point, we may say, well, your option may only be a student loan to help fulfill that difference, or a payment plan, or things like that. Okay. And then you see private colleges, university, they are much higher. Obviously, private colleges are not supported by the state. So, my friends down at Ryder, their cost of attendance is definitely going to be a little higher. That's probably about $60,000 is right, 60, 62. So the EFC is 15. So you see the financial need by going to a private college university is much higher. But look, I just want to make sure that I point this out and I'm very clear about this. It doesn't mean you should be dissuaded from applying for a private college or universities. Sometimes, the private colleges and universities realize that it costs a lot more money to go there. And therefore, they realize that they have to be more generous, perhaps with the aid that they're giving. If not, nobody would be able to afford going to their school. So I have to tell you, I have encountered many situations where a family is receiving a much more generous financial aid package at a private school that's much more expensive than my school, because they have deeper pockets. They are able to give more aid, okay, than I am. And I can only cap out or max out at a certain amount, okay? So again, if your sons and daughters are considering a private college and university, I would say don't dissuade them from applying. Don't let the sticker value shock you, because they may surprise you at the end, and they may be more generous with the type of aid that they award, all right? And basically all those things that are happening in the background are to get to this point, okay, the award notice, okay? So it's you're going to see two types of award notices. The one I'm showing you here is the one I lifted from northern New Mexico, and I just liked it because it was simple. I like it. It's nice, simple format. But you're going to see what New Jersey schools use is called the college financing plan, but we'll get to that in a second. So obviously that leads right into my first bullet. So the format may vary by institution. Okay. At some institutions, you may get something that looks like this. At some institutions, you may get something that's very complex. At some institutions, it could be, literally, this is what you're getting in aid. You have to figure out the cost and all that on your own. Okay, so keep that in mind. It may be available hard copy or online. So some institutions are still very old school, and they want to send their financial aid packages through the postal service. You actually get an envelope, with all the glossy material in it and your financial aid award letter, and information to review. All right. But most schools, like my institution, what we like to do is we notify the student via email, the email that they used on their Common App. We will notify them using that email, basically saying your financial aid awards are available for viewing. Please log into your school's, the college portal, which every student is, there's a portal created for each student when they're accepted at each college. They can then log in and view their financial aid awards, okay? It is available after the FAFSA is filed and the student is accepted, again, because there's a lot of work that goes on in the background to create this. And obviously the most common one there is, it's used to compare aid packages, obviously. This is gonna be the time when you have the most uncertainty in your household. The admissions time is the yay time. Hey, we got in, everybody's happy. And then it's like, okay, now, come the bummers in financial aid. And it's like, here's your financial aid package. Can you afford to come here? What options are available to see if you can afford to come here? Okay. So I know we're the downers, but we're also, we'll make it happen in some cases. And then just some things to be aware of. So any conditions for institutional aid or scholarships. And what I mean by that is, again, let's say your sons and daughters are fortunate that the college or university, when they were accepted, decided to offer them a $40,000 scholarship to be divisible by $10,000 a year for the 4 years they're there. So 10, 10, 10, and 10, okay? So you want to know any conditions that come with that scholarship, like for example, when we do our merit scholarships, as part of the admissions application, the student will receive also a notification basically saying we're giving you merit money, $40,000 for 4 years, $10,000 per year. And they'll also tell the student, but you must maintain a 3.0 GPA, every year in order for this to renew. There may be a credit requirement, like you have to complete a certain number of credits every year to receive this. So you want to know any conditions tied to that scholarship. Perhaps one scholarship may be, they're like, well, you need to maintain a 3.75 GPA in order to maintain this. You're like, wow, that's tough. So we're going to get this scholarship, but the criteria to keep it is tough. So you have to have a conversation with your son and daughter saying, look, we can afford to send you, but you lose the scholarship, we may not be able to continue sending you there sophomore, junior, or senior year. So, you got to make sure that you're going to be able to meet this GPA criteria, let's say, especially if you're like an engineer or a biology major or something like that, that they're very tough majors. You need to also find out, is it evaluated every year or fixed for 4 years? Okay, so what we traditionally do at TCNJ is if we award you that scholarship, let's say again, $40,000, $10,000 per year for the 4 years, it's fixed. We are not going to wait till your FAFSA for sophomore year and then go, oh, your income went up, so we're not giving it to you, or your income went down, whatever. No, it's fixed based on when your year of entry, when you came in. But other schools may not treat it like that. Other schools may say, well, we're going to give you 10,000 this year, but we'll see when your FAFSA comes in next year, and we may say, well, we're going to give you 8, because your income went up. Or inversely, they may say, oh, we're going to give you more because your income went up. Okay, so just, is it evaluated every year or is it fixed for the 4 years? And again, what are the conditions? Will outside scholarships impact institutional aid? So again, for example, at TCNJ, let's say we awarded you a $10,000 per year scholarship. And then let's say you received a scholarship from the Rotary Club for another $1,000. And then you received one from Coca-Cola Foundation because you applied and they gave you 2,000. What we will do is basically we say, great, you got your 10,000, and then we're going to put the additional 1,000 from the Rotary Club on top of this and the Coca-Cola one on top of that. So you really have $13,000 in scholarships per year. Okay. Another institution may say, we gave you the 10, but what we do is, our philosophy is that when that $1,000 Rotary one comes in, we decrease ours to 9 and you're still capped at 10. Oh, now Coca-Cola came in, that's 2. Well, guess what? Now ours goes down to 7 and you have the 2,000 from Coca-Cola and the 1,000 from the Rotary Club. Okay. Personal note here, I have a freshman who is a student at Virginia Tech, Mr. DeStefano's alma mater. And that's the way Virginia Tech works. My son was fortunate enough to receive a merit scholarship to attend Virginia Tech, but they were very clear on, Mr. Casaine, if you receive any outside scholarships, that money will be used to reduce. So as any good parent, as you will probably do, I'm going to give you some scholarship websites that you can go to. As I was looking at scholarships to apply for my son, or as I was making him apply for scholarships, I said, well, we're not going to apply for any scholarship that is below, below what they're giving you at Virginia Tech. We're only going to apply for a scholarship that's $10,000 or $15,000 a year, because I want to make sure, like, if you get a scholarship, that we're going to lose to Virginia Tech, but I want to get more than what Virginia Tech is giving you. You see? So again, just keep that in mind. Will the outside scholarships impact that institutional aid? Are they going to basically decrease the institutional to make that fit? Or are they going to stack it on top of anything that you are eligible to receive? And are scholarships front loaded? If you are receiving a scholarship, again, the school has set $40,000, total for the 4 years, $10,000 per year. Is the school saying, no, we're going to give you 10 per year? Or is another school saying, we're going to give you 20 per year to assist with freshman year while you kind of get things going? But then your sophomore year is going to go down to 10. And then your junior year is going to be 5 and your senior year is going to be 5. Okay. Just keep in mind, if that's the conditions, you may be looking at different award letters and you may say, wow, this one looks really good, but you got to keep in mind that they had front loaded that scholarship. So that's why it looks so good. You're going to have a hole, a $10,000 hole potentially if they give you 20 the first year out of 40, So again, just look at all those conditions, scrutinize the letters. And if you're unsure, call the school about, any conditions, but there's more. So another thing you need to be on the lookout for is, does the school package to need? So again, looking at that slide where I was showing you need for that Smith family, that 15,000, at some schools, their philosophy is, we're going to give you the entire 15, in grants or scholarships or whatever. You're going to get it no matter what, no questions asked. At another school, they're like, no, we're only going to be able to package what we can. Okay. I'll skip to the third bullet before I go to the second one. So does the school award merit aid? need-based aid, or both, okay? I've seen some schools that basically all they're doing is awarding merit aid only based on your son and daughter's high school profile, you know, the GPAs, class rank, AP classes they took them, athletic ability, whatever, you know, only merit-based aid, no need-based aid. So you know, may be a poor family, you know, you may not be considered. Another school may say, no, we don't award any merit. We don't give you, you could have a 5.0 GPA. You could have been the valedictorian. You could have had 4 varsity letters in different sports, whatever. We don't award any merit-based aid. All we award is need-based aid, okay? Or some schools like my school do both, okay? So again, keep that in mind. And the second bullet, does the school package with parent loans, okay? So our philosophy here is we only award the student with the aid that they're eligible for, including the loans that they may be eligible for, but we do not involve the parents in the initial financial aid package, okay? If the parent has need or decides that they want to borrow on the loan, then they can take that additional step on their own. But some schools their philosophy may be, no, we expect the parent to borrow on a parent loan $20,000 every year, and we're going to include that in their aid package. So again, if you're not scrutinized at an aid package, you might be like, well, wow, this package looks really good. They're covering everything. But what you don't realize is that school is including a parent loan and the other schools are not. So obviously that is why their package looks good, because they are expecting the family to borrow on a parent loan. And I told you about those different formats. So again, we'll look at the Northern New Mexico one, you know, again, which I like and I lifted, all right. But then in New Jersey, so in New Jersey, there's a law that says that financial aid award notices have to be sent, they have to be standardized. And we can either use a template provided by the federal government or a template provided by the state of New Jersey. They both look the same. It's basically what you are seeing in front of you. It's called the College Financing Plan. It standardizes award letters. It breaks things down like what was the FAFSA EFC? What's it going to cost for each item to attend that school? Scholarships a student may be eligible for, grants they may be eligible for, net costs after them free money, and then loan and work options. You see, I'll be honest with you, we have been using this voluntarily since 2014 when it first came out. We like it. You're comparing apples to apples if you're studying in New Jersey, which is one of the other reasons that we like it. But about 3 years ago, they made it mandatory. So now every college university in New Jersey uses this standard format, okay? The reason I point this out is because, again, you may go to a school outside of New Jersey and they may use a format that looks like this, and the New Jersey school is using a format that uses like this, and this format is voluntary outside of New Jersey, okay? So you might be comparing this award letter from this award letter, which looks vastly different, okay? So again, as if this isn't confusing enough, now they've thrown another wrench in here, because even the format that they're telling you how much financial aid you're eligible for could be very different according to colleges, specifically if it's colleges from New Jersey versus out-of-state colleges, okay? Oh, and I'll stop here for any questions on section 3.
We have none at this time.
Perfect, all right. So section 4, just other information, and I can't emphasize this enough. I probably have mentioned it already a few times, but be proactive. Deadlines, 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 okay? This is the time of year when you should be, perhaps completing all of your Common App, meeting those application deadlines, looking at the financial aid deadlines, see which schools have the earliest one, and then you want to make sure you submit your FAFSA by then. You're doing all your college searches, the CSS profile, you're seeing if school requires it and completing it. So right now is the hot time, but I can't emphasize, those deadlines enough, because February comes really quickly, and traditionally from February to April is when most schools, unless your early decision, are sending out all of their admissions decisions with their scholarship decisions, with any financial aid award notices. Okay, so these cycles come up really quick, and that's the time when you're comparing aid packages. You're perhaps visiting the school, you're calling the schools, you're emailing the schools, perhaps you're making an appointment with the schools to talk about, financial aid. Perhaps you're visiting the school one final time for an accepted students day, because come May 1st is decision day, okay? May 1st is when you have to give your deposits to secure your seat. Now, at community colleges, this is completely different. You know, community colleges, you could show up there in August and you can go, it's open admissions. Some technical schools are the same. And even some private colleges, universities extend their decision day, okay? But I can tell you the more competitive colleges, you know, I'm fortunate to include my school in there. May 1st is decision day. If that deposit is not in by that date, you don't have a shot at a seat. You may really want to get in there, but they may say, well, if you want to come in, it's only if somebody, decides that they're going to pull their deposit or their admissions decision. Okay, so I can't emphasize May 1st is really an important day to make those decisions, because before you know it, June through August, you are picking out your schedules. You're attending orientations, whether online or in person. You are visiting campuses. You're perhaps moving in early for welcome week, into your dorm. End of August, those bills are due. You're gonna have to pay those bills mid to late August. So you're solidifying all those financial aid decisions, or perhaps you're applying for those parent loans, at that time to, make sure that the bill is paid. So again, that, these, it's nice and broken up here, but this time is going to fly, folks. Again, as a parent of a current freshman, you don't realize how quickly this goes. And remember, you're also going to have all those end of year activities. Your sons and daughters are going to be going to proms. They're going to be doing graduations. They're going to be playing their last games of their athletes. Things get really, really busy at the same time that you are making these decisions and you're visiting these schools, and you have to make that May 1 decision before the orientations and the schedules and things come up. Okay, so you have to be really on top of this. Okay, special circumstances. So I want to point this out. So you saw that on the FAFSA slide that you're applying currently for financial aid for the 23-24 year, and you're using 2021 income. So technically, the income that's being used when your sons and daughters are starting college, that income is almost 2 years old already. All right. So we realize that on campuses, and the federal government gives us a tool. It's called special circumstances. Okay, professional judgment in my lingo. All right. There are certain cases where the financial aid office can adjust the income used on the FAFSA and recalculate eligibility. It's done on case-by-case basis, and it varies by institution. I want to emphasize that. Each institution has their own process for the reevaluation, okay? What I've given you here is kind of like the acceptable conditions that most colleges use, but each college is is different. So some may not accept some of these, and some may accept more. Okay, again, it's college-specific process. All right, but again, if let's say in 2021, both parents were working, but now one parent is unemployed, that's a special circumstance. If one parent, both parents were working, now one's retired. If God forbid there was the death of a parent, they're both around and now one of them has passed away, let's say due to COVID, So again, these are kind of situations where if in 2021 the income was X and now you are facing one of these situations, you can actually go to the institution's website and see if they have this process in place and see what the process is to be reevaluated. If you want to go to the TCNJ website, the financial aid website on the left, I have a link called Special Circumstances. It sends you to a whole new website with all the text, the process that's involved, all the different forms, and the documentation we would need for the reevaluation, okay? So again, institution specific. The only real issue here, folks, is there's a catch-22 to this. Most schools will not do the reevaluation unless the student has committed to that school, okay? So some folks say, well, wait a second, truly is a catch-22 because I don't know if I'll be able to afford to send my son and daughter there if I know if they're going to meet the special condition or a reevaluation, you see? And the way the schools look at it is they say, look, you need to be sure that you can afford to send your son and daughter here without the special circumstance, because we don't know if the special circumstance is going to make any difference, okay? And the special circumstance may be only good for this year, And then now the parent finds a job and now both parents are working again, and then the situation changes again, okay? So again, but very institution specific, but all I want you to know is that this process is out there and available if you are facing one of these situations. Other resources, again, look at outside scholarships, payment plans. I really don't touch on payment plans, but just keep in mind, a lot of schools have payment plans, interest-free payment plans, very small sign-up fee, like $25 or $40 for the year. And all it's allowing you to do is just extend the payment out over perhaps a 5-month or a 10-month period so that you don't take that big hit and pay for the fall semester in August and then have to pay for the spring semester, in January. You see, you can stretch it out. The students should be considering, on the FAFSA they can put down if they want to work on campus. And if there's federal work study funding available, they'll be packaged for that. And if they're not, the student can always reach out to the campus once they're a student there and say, hey, I want to apply for a job on campus. I need a job to help pay for my college expenses. And, they maybe get a job as a student ambassador or a tour guide. These are kind of like, good options for students. Some schools offer co-ops or internships that are paid or unpaid. So I have, for example, my neighbor went to Drexel in Philly, and their junior year, they're required to go out and work as a job, and then they earn money, and then that money helps pay, help pay for his senior year, So there's options like that. So you got to maybe think outside the box a little bit, okay? Private scholarship searches, again, some reputable websites, probably some of the best options would be, and I'm not sure if your high school is on SCORE or on Naviance, but I know that usually traditionally the guidance offices, when they see a scholarship source that comes in, they will post it. I know they do it on Naviance, where you can go out there and see scholarships that are available that you can apply for. I would definitely say that's a really good option for you. But another good option, believe it or not, is any parents here that work for a large employer, let's say, go to the HR office. You may find that your employer has scholarships available for children of employees. I'll use the example, my uncle used to work for AT&T many years. And when my cousin finally was ready to go to college, my uncle just on a whim decided to go to HR at AT&T. And it turned out that they had a scholarship for dependents, of employees there. And he applied, and I think it was something like, at the time, a $2,000 scholarship that he just had no clue about, and just on a whim decided to go to HR. So definitely check, go to your churches, your temple, your civic organizations, Knights of Columbus, if you belong to it, whatever, and just ask. You're not going to lose anything by asking. And there may be a scholarship that's available from that entity.
Just going to add, Mr. Casaine, we do keep a local scholarship file in our counseling office. There'll be more information on that, a little bit later in the school year, but that is something that our seniors are eligible to apply for. A number of different scholarships. Certain scholarships are for certain groups or people who are members of a certain sport, or different. There's different qualifications for each one.
Right.
But that's certainly information that'll be forthcoming.
Perfect. And also, just to add to that, you will find that a lot of the college websites also have their own vetted scholarships that students can apply for. Obviously, it's traditionally it's for scholarships, if you're going to be attending that school. But for example, if you wanted to, again, just go to my website and look for scholarships, and there's actually a private scholarship link, and it opens up like I think it's like an 18-page PDF document with like 3 or 4 different scholarship sources with a link to the scholarship entity and a brief description. A lot of colleges, do have that. So I would definitely say, you can, do research through that as well. But I'm giving you on this slide. So, we talk about HVCHS, and basically HVCHS stands for Higher Education Student Assistance Authority. They are your state financial aid authority. Okay. Basically, the reason I'm giving this presentation is because HVCHS likes to do this outreach. They basically hire us, from the financial aid community to go out and talk to different high schools as an outreach. They want people to apply for aid. If you have any questions about aid, you can, as a New Jersey resident, you can call them. I've given you their telephone number there, their websites, their customer care center, email, whatever. And any financial aid question you have, even if it's a very specific aid question, even if it's about the FAFSA or about scholarships, whatever, you can always call them. And they'll try and give you guidance. And if they can't, they'll at least point you in the right direction. They may say, well, look, why don't you call the FAFSA folks on this one, because that's a specific issue to them. Or on this one, you really should call the college because it's specific to them. But at least know that you have, besides the guidance office at the high school, which is really the best source there is, this is also another source that you can reach out to if you need any help in terms of the financial aid process. Okay. And with that, we'll open it up to perhaps any final questions you have. I know that you are probably all very overwhelmed by now, but again, you have the presentation. It's going to be sent to you. Feel free to refer back to it. A lot of good sources out there. You know, again, the guidance office is probably the best source for you at this point. You know, they're ready and willing to assist you. So I would definitely say turn to them first.
Great. Yes. And like you said, Mr. Casaine, I will be sending out a recording of tonight's program. I'll be sending out those slides. Thank you so much. The only question we have right now, so it says, so formally, is it the student who's filing the FAFSA? I guess it could be rephrased as, in what cases would it be the student who's filing the FAFSA?
So good question. So in all cases, the student is the one who's filing the FAFSA. The student is the individual that will be attending college, and the student is the individual that will be applying for aid. It's just that we know that as the student is filing the FAFSA, they're going to answer certain questions, and then the FAFSA will determine if parental information is needed. You know, knowing your population, having been at your school, you know, for, you know, many times visiting and talking to you guys, I could tell you that probably a huge majority of your students are going to be dependent students. They will have to provide parental data. So in essence, the student should be driving the process. They should be the ones in front of the computer, filling out the FAFSA with mom and dad sitting next to them, providing any relevant data that they need to provide, or assisting the students with any questions that they have while doing the FAFSA.
And that's the only question. I think it was a very thorough presentation, so that's a good sign.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I wish everybody the best of luck, and Dan, we'll be in touch. Okay.
Great. Thanks so much, Mr. Casaine. Always a pleasure. And like Mr. Casaine said, reach out to the counseling office anytime. Counselors are always available to answer any questions that you might have. And like some of the resources Mr. Casaine shared, if we don't have the answer for you, we'll be more than happy to point you in the right direction.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks everybody for joining tonight. Everyone have a great evening.